History is filled with monarchs who defined entire eras. Louis XIV, the Sun King, reigned for 72 years. Queen Elizabeth II sat on the throne for 70. These rulers shaped laws, fought wars, and built empires over decades. But what if I told you that one king of France technically held the absolute power of the monarchy for less time than it takes to watch a sitcom episode? Meet Louis XIX. He is the answer to one of history's favorite trivia questions and the holder of a dubious world record. For exactly 20 minutes, he was the King of France and Navarre. But those 20 minutes weren't just a clerical error, they were the final, gasping breath of a dynasty that had ruled France for centuries. This is the story of the shortest reign in history, a tale of revolution, family drama, and a kingdom lost in the blink of an eye. To understand how a king lasts only 20 minutes, we have to travel back to the chaos of 19th century France. After the dust settled from the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, the old royal family, the Bourbons, were put back on the throne. But France was a changed nation, and the idea of absolute monarchy was on shaky ground. By 1824, the crown rested on the head of Charles X. Charles was what you might call a hardliner. He didn't just want to be king, he wanted to rewind the clock to a time before the Revolution, a time of unquestioned royal power. He censored the press, dissolved parliament, and generally angered the people of Paris, who had fought and died for their freedoms. He was pouring fuel on a fire that was already smoldering. In July 1830, Paris exploded. In just 3 days of furious fighting, known as Les Trois Glorieuses or the Three Glorious Days, the people rose up. They built barricades in the narrow streets and fought the royal troops in a bloody struggle for the future of France. The message was loud and clear: Charles X had to go. Caught in the middle of this firestorm was Charles's son and heir, Louis-Antoine, the Duke of Angoulême. He was a man in his 50s, a veteran soldier who had fought against Napoleon, but he was largely seen as a puppet of his domineering, ultra-royalist father. He had spent his entire life in the shadow of the throne, waiting to be king. He just didn't expect the opportunity to arrive while an angry mob was literally marching towards his family's doorstep. The day is August 2, 1830. The royal family has fled Paris and is now hiding out at the grand but gloomy Château de Rambouillet. The atmosphere is suffocating with tension and fear. Outside, the revolutionary forces are marching towards the castle, their numbers growing. Inside, the grim realization finally sets in: it is over. The Bourbon Dynasty's restoration has failed. Defeated, and desperate to save the dynasty for his grandson, King Charles X makes a fateful decision. He will abdicate. He sits at his desk, and with a heavy heart, signs the official document giving up his throne. Now, here is where the story gets truly bizarre. According to the ancient laws of French succession, the moment the king's signature dries on that paper, the crown automatically passes to his eldest son and heir, the Dauphin, Louis-Antoine. And so, at that precise moment, Louis-Antoine becomes, by law, His Majesty Louis XIX, King of France and Navarre. But his father, Charles, never intended for him to rule. The plan was for the crown to skip a generation entirely. Charles wanted it to go straight to his young grandson, the 10-year-old Duke of Bordeaux, believing a child monarch might be more acceptable to the revolutionaries and save the Bourbon line. What follows is perhaps the most awkward and high-stakes father-son argument in all of royal history. Freshly abdicated, Charles X turns to his son, now the new king, and demands that he sign the abdication paper immediately. But Louis XIX hesitates. For a fleeting moment, the weight of a crown he's waited for his entire life is his. According to witnesses, his wife, Marie-Therese, is the only surviving child of the executed Louis XVI, and Marie-Antoinette urged him to hold on to his power. He actually tried to negotiate with his father. He allegedly pleaded, "Let me reign for just 1 hour." His father's response was brutal and dismissive. "You wouldn't even last an hour." The argument raged back and forth for roughly 20 minutes. 20 minutes where Louis-Antoine was the absolute monarch of France. In theory, he could have issued decrees, declared war, appointed ministers, or dissolved the government. He held all the power of the Sun King himself. Instead, He spent his entire reign being yelled at by his dad while revolution swirled outside the palace walls. Finally, beaten down by his father's relentless pressure and the sheer hopelessness of the situation, Louis-Antoine takes the pen. He scrawls his own signature, Louis-Antoine, on the document, renouncing his rights to the throne he had just inherited. His reign began the moment his father put the pen down, and it ended the moment he picked it up. The deed was done. Two kings had abdicated in less than half an hour. The document was sealed and rushed by a messenger to Paris, declaring the young grandson as the new king, Henry V. The Bourbons had made their move, hoping to salvage their future. But the revolutionaries in Paris had other ideas. They weren't interested in a child king handpicked by the old tyrant they had just overthrown. The Chamber of Deputies looked at the double abdication document and essentially ignored it. Instead, they offered the throne to a distant cousin of the king, Louis Philippe, Duke of Orleans, who became the new and more modern king of the French. The sacrifices made at Rambouillet were completely in vain. The frantic 20-minute reign had meant nothing. Louis-Antoine, the 20-minute king, was forced into exile along with his father and the rest of the family. He spent the rest of his life wandering through Britain, Austria, and Italy, using the simple title Count of Marnes. He was a ghost of a king who never truly was, and he would never set foot in France again. So, why does the bizarre story of Louis XIX matter? It's easy to laugh at the absurdity of it all. A king for 20 minutes. It sounds like a joke. But those 20 minutes represent something profound. They represent the very moment the ancient idea of the divine right of kings finally died in France. It shows us that power isn't real just because a law says it is, or because it's in your bloodline. Louis-Antoine had the title, the lineage, and the absolute legal right to the throne. But without the support of the people, without the consent of the governed, he was only king for as long as it took to argue with his father and sign a piece of paper. In the end, Louis XIX holds a strange and pathetic record that will likely never be broken. His story is a powerful reminder that in the great game of thrones, you can technically wear the crown and still lose everything in the blink of an eye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into a weird corner of history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.